in those types of scenarios? Is there a way to factor that at all?
If that's the sole purpose of this specific policy, assuming that every other life insurance need might be taking place, then it's a fairly simple calculation, which is looking at how many years there would be, and how much per month, and doing the math and saying, okay, if it's $500 a month for X number of years, and calculating that out, that would be a starting point.
Okay.
Now, that's just to say that's the alimony or the child support. That doesn't mean that there isn't opportunity, especially when children are involved, to say, you know what, I want to make sure that my children also have funding for their college education.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And anything else, or I want them to be able to have money to buy their first car, whatever it may be, whatever regardless of what's happened between you and your spouse, you don't want the children to suffer, at least financially, and this is one way to ensure that that doesn't happen. So, the starting point is really, what's that monthly support going to be times the number of months, but looking at some of these other issues are also important considerations.
So that's just a bare minimum is the income portion. Now let's do a little bit of math. You good at math?
I can do some math.
I'll make it easy.
All right.
Let's say a spouse is paying $1,000 a month for 10 years.
Okay, so it's $120,000.
Okay. So if we took the bare minimum, we would say, would you say $120,000 policy?
That would be the bare minimum, $120,000.
And that would just to be cover that part of.
It would cover that part. Now recognize, you're 5 years into it. You've already paid $60,000 of it, so there is a little bit. There is a little bit extra. But when you purchase a policy like this, the assumption you have to make is, what happens if something happened tomorrow? Because that's the worst case scenario, and that's what you have to plan for. So you can always make a decision later on to reduce coverage. So if you're getting close to the end and you don't want to pay the full on the $120,000, you and your spouse can come to an agreement, because remember, your spouse is the owner of the policy, so they have to agree to this. You may come to some other financial arrangement at that point to lower the coverage to only cover the remaining months.
Gotcha. Are there, so for purposes of the term of the policy, in this scenario where we have someone paying $1,000 a month for 10 years, would you say get a 10-year term policy? And we're talking term insurance.
Right, yeah, we're talking about term insurance. And again, if it's only this issue, yes, because my guess is that the ex-spouse isn't necessarily looking to fund life insurance beyond that. So there might be some sort of, maybe when the children turns 18, maybe there's one child, they turn 18 at that point. Well, even with that, again, what's best for your children, what's best for your financial situation. I know it's not an easy conversation to have at that point in time with the ex-spouse. So yeah, this is the bare minimum, but you look at things that like, how easy will it be for the spouse to go back to work? Would she be able to go back to work if something happened? Or, what is her living arrangement? Is she in some sort of situation where she's going to need extra money beyond that 10 years? So all those things should be factored on both sides. I mean, when this decision is being made, how long to purchase this policy for and for how much, the whole situation should be looked at on both sides.
And then just in general, life insurance, regardless of divorce, these are things you need to look at regardless.
Right.
I mean, spousal support or keeping things going for your wife, your kids, college, and...
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing you hear are stories of, and I'm sure you've heard these stories too, where something happens to somebody and they're going around to the people at work just to get money to bury them. I mean, it's just, it's a really sad situation, especially in most cases when life insurance isn't all that expensive, relatively speaking. And, it doesn't benefit you or me if we're the ones that have it and, we go. But to know that my family's taken care of is pretty important to me, to know that my kids will still be able to do the things they want to do. So even outside of a divorce, life insurance is just one of those, it's such a small investment for such a big potential benefit down the road.
Right.
And the worst case scenario is, if you don't use it, you don't use it. And
hey, and you're alive.
What a great scenario. And they actually have policies that do return on premium. So if you outlive it, they'll actually give you your money back. They have policies like that now too.
Wow.
So there's
no reason not to have it.
No reason at least not to talk to somebody about it.
Right.